Welcome to the Always On podcast. I'm your host, Duncan MacPherson. And as you might know, I've been coaching and consulting high caliber financial professionals for going on 30 years. I lead a team of very capable coaching, consulting, and accountability partners, many of whom started off as clients, if you can believe that. But I'm saying this because our podcast, the objective is to enable our audience, which are very high caliber, fee-for-service professionals, to keep working on themselves and on their businesses to drive enterprise value and organic growth and make sure there's efficiency and consistency. And to that end, I just had a great conversation with Jackie Wilke. Jackie is an innovative business development and practice management guru. She's part of the advisor consulting group at First Trust Portfolios, along with Chris Jepson and the team. And today we talked about next gen family wealth and just how to go deeper into the family tree. So I hope you like it. And if you do, please like and share and tell your colleagues. And if you have any ideas or topics you'd like to hear in the future, just let us know. Thanks for listening. Very excited to have a returning guest to our Always On podcast, Jackie Wilke, probably no stranger to anybody who's either watching or listening in. Jackie actually requires very little introduction. She is the VP of Advisor Consulting with First Trust Portfolios. That is an unrivaled bench of world-class business development, client acquisition, and practice management consultants. Jackie, thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you for having me back. It's an honor to be here again.
Well, thank you for saying that. And my view of the many hats you wear is that you've got, at a minimum, the cheat codes, but you probably cracked the entire code around how a financial professional can become indispensable all the way through the family tree. Is there anything you want to add to that?
You know, like you see, Duncan, we sit in these really cool seats in the industry where we get to study success. We get to see what's happening. We have our finger on the pulse of what's changing. And when we look at where financial professionals are at today and what they need to think about going forward, family wealth, navigating the wealth transfer, understanding what the priorities, preferences, values are of these future and current decision makers is absolutely imperative, not just for growth opportunities, but to fortify these businesses that they built. And so much of the opportunity with women investors, with rising generations of wealth builders and holders, they start right within existing clients' family trees. So yeah, family wealth, a huge focus in our industry and a big focus in the work I do as a financial professional.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I want to unpack as much of that as we can. I just want to remind everybody listening in, first of all, if you have second, third, and fourth generation clients, just take a moment to absorb how big of a responsibility that is, but also a compliment that is about your value that you're bringing to a family. Because, first of all, think about this. Who else in business gets to say that? Even in the fee-for-service space, accounting firms, law firms, and other knowledge-for-profit professionals, who could say they have second, third, and fourth generation clients? It's a small list, number one. Number two, remember the rule of 52. The rule of 52 says that every single client you have in your own inner circle of clients, let's say you have 200 clients, each of those people have their own inner circle of 52. Friends, family members, business associates, and acquaintances. Some have more, some have less. That's not the point. The point is, do the math. And of course, a big number of that 52 are family members, up the tree, down the tree, whatever the case might be. That is a vein of gold. That is your primary addressable market from a client acquisition and organic growth perspective. And I would ask you, at a minimum, Jackie is an essential follow on LinkedIn. I think I'm trying to keep up with you in terms of busyness and value that you're bringing to your community of followers there. But let's drill into this. So what are you seeing specifically that advisors are doing that are getting meaningful results when it comes to going deeper into the family tree?
Great place to start. So, what they're doing at a minimum, one of the things is they are proactive. It is not your client's job to introduce you, and it's not the family member's job to ask. And I love the point that you made is growth in the family tree isn't just top down. It can be horizontally to siblings, in-laws, up the family tree to mom and dad. So being proactive is essential. We can't wait for clients and their loved ones to come to us. The second thing is it has to be a give, not an ask. Because if you're going to your client saying, hey, we want to meet the kids, well, it feels like, why? Because you want to sell to them or you want to keep them when I die. No, we want this to be a service. And a Cerulli study found that one of the top reasons that high net worth individuals choose their primary provider is services and experiences. And one of those leading services that they're looking for is family education and counseling. So adding this as part of a service, elevating the client experience, that's another key part. And one of the solutions that we have at First Trust is called the family phone call. It's the number one process I do coaching on. It's your proactive introduction to the family, to the loved ones, but it's scalable. It's 10 minutes. One of the things that we see teams often do wrong is they go right into trying to have a 2-hour family meeting, and people aren't quite ready yet. Those loved ones are still wanting to get to know you. They still want to see if you're going to be a good fit for them, not just my parents' advisor, but my advisor. So the family phone call is the number one process I do coaching on to help foster that proactive, warm introduction wrapped in service for clients. So if anybody is listening, talk to your First Trust wholesaler about those resources. But I wanted to share 2 stats that I thought were really interesting about where family wealth and serving families are. So one of the things that a Fidelity study came back with is that they found households in which the next generation was engaged generated 160% more revenue and 270% more profit compared to households when the next gen was not engaged. And I would love to get your reaction to that stat. I'm always still floored when I share it during a presentation. More revenue, more profit because we engage the next generation. Well, you're probably bringing in adult children then as clients, and your clients are consolidating. They are now seeing you as all in on the people and things most important to them. Why would they have other professionals? So I'll pause there. I'd love to get your reaction to that statistic. I think it's mind-blowing.
Okay, so first of all, Jackie, you covered a lot of ground. And I just want to go back for a second. You said it's not the family member's responsibility. That is so essential to keep in mind because many advisors become their own best kept secret. And it is incumbent on you just to remove the mystery and position yourself as somebody that can put pieces of the puzzle together for other family members. But your point about it's not an ask, giving starts the receiving process. The more value you give, you attract. You're not chasing with salesmanship. You're attracting with stewardship. And I loved the tip of the spear being the family phone call. There's no hidden agenda. There's not a massive commitment of time, but enables you to just open up the conversation and see what it reveals and just follow the permissions of the clients who respond to it and then give you the opportunity to go deeper. So that is fantastic, first of all. So everybody just understand that positioning, number one. Number two, your point about the data. I'd not heard that before. And there's so much that an advisor can feed from that. Now I'm going to try to connect it with something that I heard last week. Okay, so Confucius said, dig your well before you're thirsty. Mm-hmm. So I know a financial professional that bought into that and started to position himself with the next generation. And lo and behold, unbeknownst to the advisor, the parents of the client, so the grandparents of the next gen, were colossal, both in terms of their impact on the community and legacy, but also their net worth. And there was a significant inheritance that went to the next gen. And the advisor was shocked about that. And so I'm probably answering your question with a question, just understanding what the reality is of the sandwich clients up the tree and down the tree with your core clients. How does that correspond with the data you just provided?
So when we talk about family with our clients, one of the things that we want to emphasize is that you as the financial professional are a resource for whoever's most important to them. One of the things that I see go wrong is when financial professionals position the family phone call, for example, as, hey, this is for your kids. Well, maybe clients didn't have kids. Maybe there's really complicated family dynamics. Not to mention, we don't want to limit ourselves to their sister-in-law who's a C-suite executive in Chicago, their brother who's in California owns a business. So like you're saying, we want to position this as we, as your financial professionals, care about the people and things that are important to you. By extension, that means that whoever's most important to you get access to us by extension. The family phone call is the introduction. Beyond that, maybe they get access to a 20-minute Ask Anything session on demand, but that's where you open up going up the family tree. And to your point, I was in California not too long ago, and we're at a lunch, and one of the financial professionals, who joined us, she was really excited to share this story with me. She said, I hosted a client event when my clients came. She was then talking to her parents about the event. And in that conversation, her parents said, wow, your financial professional hosts the event, does different things. We don't remember the last time we heard from our financial professional. We'd really love to talk to yours. So similar, like the opportunity up the family tree, just because they might have a relationship with a financial professional doesn't mean it's the right one. But also to your point, and I'm kind of going a little bit off tangent, but the wealth that exists up the family tree that's going to be transferred, and it's not a wealth transfer that's going to happen. It's happening now. We had a team in Connecticut. They onboarded the daughter and son-in-law of one of their biggest clients because the son-in-law received almost an 8-figure inheritance from his grandparents. And why would they go try to find any other advisor if you are the one who already reached out to them? And where we see people missing, this is another statistic that I find crazy. Cerulli did a study last fall. They found that only 19% of assets were staying with the parent's financial professional. So only 19% stayed.
19.
Now, 81% going into motion. It's not all going to another financial professional. It's going to buy a boat, buy a house, pay down debt, maybe a DIY strategy. But in that, the reason that number is so high is if you are the financial professional reaching out after mom and dad, after grandma passed away, and you're reaching out to me, who at that point is probably in my 50s and 60s, well, that message sounds like, hey, I care about you now because you have the money. And I don't know any client that wants to start a relationship with a financial professional that's me. I only care about you now because I know you have assets.
Okay, so I always thought you were a subject matter expert, but you've clearly upped your game to another level. Like you say so much in so little time. I'm trying to keep up just by taking notes. First of all, that comment regarding that trip to California, and I can't remember the last time my advisor even called me, let alone offered value. Everybody needs to remember, from a thought leadership perspective, there is impact just in your client receiving your content, not even necessarily acting on it, just triggering the moment of recognition and just going, wow, this is value added. I actually value. They might kick the can down the road, but then now you've given them something to talk about to a friend or a family member that creates that wedge moment where the friend's like, that's what your advisor delivers? It never even occurred to me that was possible. So that's profound. Your point about it's happening, it's so true. Like the old saying that incrementalism, things happen gradually, then suddenly. Like it's gradually happening right now and gathering steam. Like nothing stops this tsunami of momentum. Um, okay, I need to ask something.
Right.
I want to come to a question in a second, but I need to comment on something that's, I think, related. So your 20-minute AMAs, right? The Ask Me Anything. Are those captured and made evergreen by being video? Like, can that fall under the confines of testimonials, or is there a way to turn that into intellectual property and make that evergreen on the website or within social media?
You know, I think that's a phenomenal question. And this is also why you are always a thought leader in our space, because you take this unique lens and how you see something and what else can we use, or how else can we maximize it to get impact and value for clients and prospects. So I hadn't thought about that. Usually the AMAs are just, hey, 20 minutes of my time to discuss your agenda. But now that you mention it, maybe you can't necessarily record it. Maybe you can. I know everyone's different. I'm not an expert on testimonials. I know
Mm-hmm.
you're much more versed in that space, but it could even be a story. Like we see so many
Mm.
financial professionals use a story on LinkedIn. Like had a couple of clients that came in with this question, then they realized, oh my gosh, it's actually a bigger problem. Is there a solution? Absolutely. This is how we set it up for them. And now they're on the other side of that obstacle. So I don't see why you couldn't use those AMA conversations, the questions that are coming up, for content in other areas. I don't know if you have a different answer for that.
Well, I'm with you in that I'm not sure, but I know you're a big fan of Idea Decanter, and
Mm-hmm.
they're experts at capturing the energy and goodwill that a client has for a financial professional within the confines of compliance. So if anybody would know, it's probably them. But your ability to, like you say, not necessarily record the AMA, but extract the energy from the AMA and then turn that into a story around the client's positioning. Like all I'm trying to really just like a broken record reminding advisors of is that every investment of effort should culminate into your intellectual property, things that I can only get from you, and not letting it vaporize into the ether, but actually memorializing it in video and other forms of content. So we should look into that, and it might be another uh, thing for Idea Decanter to make available. But testimonials, that is the proverbial game changer when it comes to credibility and advocacy. Um, okay, Jackie, I'm going to come
Absolutely.
back to my track here. So you've got some great progressions and a process around helping a financial professional and their team not only identify unmet needs, but to get out in front of evolving needs regarding family dynamics. You talk about the momentum in the wealth transfer. You know, all of these things that we're hearing around capital gains and things like that. Do you see that accelerating this now that people have some anxiety and uncertainty about some of their legacy getting eaten up with tax and so on?
I'm not a tax expert, or this is not tax advice, but if we look at that from a behavioral standpoint, so many of financial professionals' clients, they might have been the first generation to build. So, of course, for them, a big
Mm-hmm.
motivator and why they've worked so hard, why they've built their businesses, have these great careers, saved and invested diligently, is because they want to leave a legacy that includes both values and valuables. So, if their vision or their goals for their legacy means that you have to adjust the plan because of potential changing policy, I don't see why that wouldn't be on the table. If for them their goal is still to give X amount, or set up a family foundation, I think it's going to be an area of opportunity for educational content for financial professionals. And kind of what we were talking about, when you use those stories, it's social proof. And social proof is how
Mm-hmm.
we help clients see themselves in someone else that benefited from what you did. So sharing stories of how you helped families like them, or how you help set up an estate plan similar to what the goals are that they have for theirs. Or like one I know we talked about when we were prepping for this, I'm sure you hear this all the time, where everyone has at least one client where they don't want the kids to know how much money they have. And like most things that our clients do, they point to the money, but it's actually not about the money. They're worried about habits, bad values, kids becoming spoiled, entitled, lazy. So for those clients, especially using stories, social proof, having solutions that are specifically designed to help them get to their goals, they're going to receive those solutions, those ideas, that content much differently than if you just said, hey, we think this is a good idea. Kind of putting that who and why first, then backing into what and how.
Okay, well said. And you're right. I mean, the stage of readiness is different for everybody. Back to the scenario about the next gen inheriting money, we're seeing it where the grandparents of the next gen who are financially independent, they bootstrap, they did it themselves, they're starting to see, the value of money decline, the cost of living increase, where they're not waiting until they pass to move their legacy. They're gifting now, and there's consequences, of course, of that. And I'm not putting you on the spot from a tax perspective, but I think just from a stage of readiness perspective, advisors need to be aware of that. And so let's sync that. So let me see if I've got this right, and you might want to correct me on this, but a progression. So a family phone call, great first step. 20-minute AMA, ask me anything, great second step. Potentially third step, client testimonials. Building on that momentum is a good fourth step, a deeper dive, like panels, events, things like that.
Absolutely. So the goal is to strike a balance between being the family's financial professional and the individual's financial professional. So when you work with the family capital, you might do family meetings, family offsites, special events. Like last holiday season, one of our financial advisors here in Chicago knew that their client's 3 daughters were coming into town, asked them what they wanted to do, and they did a cooking class around the holidays. So setting things like that up. Also, we have a team in Indianapolis who's getting ready for next gen programming, where they're bringing together these Gen 2s, Gen 3s who are all around the same age or same life phase so that they can learn from each other. Because if we're talking about very affluent families, especially those that have a family enterprise, some of these younger generations are just experiencing things that a lot of their peers can't relate to. So like you suggested, creating experiences, education, events where you can bond with that family or bring people together in community, that's a big opportunity that we see right now.
Okay, excellent. Now you also, a few moments ago, you mentioned the behavioral coaching. I want to share this with you. So, pretty enlightened advisor, also in California. He's gone through this evolution where he used to pitch individual things like value adds as good intentions, like I'm trying hard, I'm a good guy. And we got him to reshape it where instead of pitching individual things, he positioned one thing. And the one thing was, I've got a process. I've got a panoramic process that's built out, that's designed to put every piece of the puzzle together. It's fluid and dynamic, and it grows with you, the client. So instead of him referring a client out to other service providers and value adds, he started saying, I've engaged all of these other service providers into the process, so you always have the complete picture. So he went through that. Long story short, and I might not get all of this right, but I think if I remember correctly, he was talking to a client, pretty substantial, and the client was hinting that one of their kids was having some difficulties with the LSAT. And the advisor said, hey, just so you know, I've got somebody as part of our process that we can make available to offer a little bit of direction to your daughter just to help put the odds in her favor, and just another set of eyes and just navigate through this. Well, you can imagine how that was received. And again, it's not just what you say, it's what they hear, the energy, the purity of that intention, but being process driven. So I'm curious, are you seeing that too in terms of value adds that an advisor can future pace and position to help them earn the right even more?
I love that story. And first of all, for everyone listening, I don't know if there's anyone better with words than you and Chris Jepson in this industry. Words are so important. And I think it's amazing how you and your team and Chris really help financial professionals hone in on those words that are important. A couple things I want to unpack there that are really important for everyone listening. One is better data. You have to know what's going on in your clients' lives. You have to have those conversations, ask better discovery questions throughout your relationship to know what else is going on. If you never knew that one of the kids was maybe struggling with the LSAT, if you don't have that kind of deep discovery, that relationship, you're going to miss that opportunity. So data is so important in this process. One of the resources that we have is we have a whole new couple-page document a new page document that just has qualitative discovery questions. So questions to go through different areas of the process. So better data means you have the opportunity. I love this theme that I'm also seeing of rethinking strategic partners. So what your advisor did was position themselves as a strategic facilitator. If there's one thing that busy professionals, whether they're busy doing the hobbies that they love, they're busy working, they're busy with family, what don't they want to do? They don't want to have to go find someone else. So looking at who else could be a strategic partner for you that adds value uniquely to your ideal client. So then you're now their family financial professional and their strategic facilitator. You're that first phone call. Grandma needs a new car. We have a team in Houston. They now have 2 grief counselors as part of their strategic network for either when mom and dad pass away or for a lot of their clients who are widowed. Husband passed away first. Who else can we bring to her to help make this transition smoother? So they have a couple grief counselors. So I think that's a phenomenal story where you're the first phone call, whether it's for a family member, the family as a whole, and inside or outside of the money. So yes, short answer that I just gave in a very long answer is yes, I'm seeing that too. I think that's such a great story.
A customized podcast can add credibility and efficiency to your communication efforts. Sifting good prospects from the mass of suspects, staying top of mind with strategic partners, and activating more advocacy from existing clients can be achieved with a turnkey approach. Learn more at proudmouth.com. The best place to strengthen a client relationship is in the very place where you manage that relationship. BlueSquareToolkit.com has harnessed the best practices of Pareto systems and brought them to life in our easy-to-use system that is accessible on both your phone and your desktop. Simple technology to uncomplicate your life by creating clarity, accountability, and consistency for your entire team. Build stronger client relationships by tracking and archiving essential information on what matters in your client's life and make yourself indispensable and more referable in the process. Create a more consistent client experience and grow your business with the Blue Square Toolkit. Visit BlueSquareToolkit.com to get your 14-day free trial today. Okay, you know what might not be a bad idea is for everybody to go and take those words, the first phone call, and print them out in neon lights and put that all throughout your office so that the entire team understands what's the point? Like what are we trying to provide here? Because advisors fixate so much on what they do, which is very important. But we keep saying to them, fixate as much on what it is your clients want and make sure that they make the connection that what they want is aligned with what you do. So, what does a client want? They want liberation and order, right? You've got this. You've got this. I don't have to worry about this. I can make one phone call to you and you're going to relieve me of this burden of uncertainty and apprehension. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine if that oh yeah, well, exactly. I mean, trust. I mean, if I have that level of trust, I literally feel I'm doing a friend a disservice by not sharing my advisor with them, let alone a family member. Okay. So yeah, beautiful. Now you mentioned something else there that was pretty powerful. Because, okay, let me back up. My brother-in-law, great guy. He's a high school teacher, great guy, and very direct. You've got to be in that world probably. And he has this mantra, and I'm probably messing with this a little bit, but he says, "Hey, look, high school kids, probably not as smart as they think, but nowhere near as dumb as we think." And he says that respectfully because he says, just imagine the velocity of noise and pressure. I think there's a group within that demographic that's going to emerge and help just lead to a renaissance in our world. So what's my point? I've talked about this before, like Elon Musk, he flipped it for me because and I hope I'm getting this right. You can look this up, but his mindset about kids is, my kids didn't ask to be born. I chose to have kids. Therefore, they owe me nothing. I owe them everything. That to me, that stopped me in my tracks, thinking about how I perceive my kids. And I think that dynamic is going on between these generations. So let me just ask you this question. Is there, based on the behavioral side and the value added side, are there unmet needs that you're seeing in additionally that an advisor can address as part of their process?
Yeah. So if you think about this generation that's coming up and the ones to come after, they are digital first. They have had more access on their smartphones to the market, to products, to information, to people, and that's only going to become more democratized, more commoditized. So what we see as the opportunity is behavioral coaching, which according to a Fidelity study, 85% of Gen Y and Gen Z that they surveyed want some sort of behavioral coaching. So they're not necessarily looking for just advice. They want collaboration. They want to co-create. They want to learn through this. They are curious. And now, as these people come up, just as you've seen with any generation, not everyone wants to work with a financial professional and not everyone's a good fit for your business. That's okay. We're trying to understand broadly how are these generations different, but ultimately, this is for new generations and groups like women investors. It's really hard to speak for an entire generation or an entire gender. So what we want to focus on is, okay, what are some trends that are impacting how they're growing up, how their habits and values are being shaped, their priorities and preferences are being shaped, and then how can we use this to drill deeper? Like one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, do younger investors care about ESG? Well, ESG is kind of a niche topic, but many of them do care about aligning impact with their investments. They care about putting their values and purpose into the portfolios. So when you approach them to understand what's important to them as individuals, in addition to being part of this family, asking them some of those better discovery questions like, I'm curious, what are some of the charities and causes that are important to you? Are there any that maybe you don't want to be supporting with your portfolio? and then let them answer, because they might say, no, don't really care. Or they might say, actually, yeah, I'm really passionate about ABC initiative. So I think that that's something for everyone to keep in mind is while this data about large demographics is helpful, ultimately comes back down to that individual and getting to know them as much as you can to build that rapport and build that trust.
Okay, you've just validated something for me. So, you know how we talk about having an ideal client profile, stick to it ardently, focus on who you're suited for, not who you're looking for. And that's evolving in real time. And I don't know if I've shared this with you, but we have advisors now where they've expanded their thinking around who the ideal client is from AAA to NVG. And NVG is needs, values, goals. Okay, so the ideal client alignment with the ideal advisor is there's a clear understanding about needs now and in the future. And the advisor responds to those needs, gets out in front of evolving needs. Values, we see the world the same way. You know, it's chemistry, it's just a deep understanding for what's important to you around those elements. And then goals, you know, being a goals-based planner, professionalizing that fully. What you just talked about, I think fits perfectly into that framework.
I love that. I'm going to definitely borrow that. Don't worry, I'll give you credit, but I'm definitely borrowing that. That's
Jack,
awesome because that captures what really is most important. You know, the money is the thing they point to, and of course the money is important. But now advisors do so much more than just manage money. They manage the people.
yeah. Well, isn't that true? I mean, you're talking about that stat, the 85% on behavioral coaching. I think there's just an appreciation because I think we all know advisors that were a little bit early, like a little bit ahead of the curve, or they were bringing value adds that maybe some people didn't fully understand or appreciate at the time. But now, just based on the velocity of noise and storm clouds and things like that, there's a higher stage of readiness for that, and I think there's a congruency where again those who chase focus on who I'm looking for. I'm looking for high net worth clients. I'm looking for affluent clients. Nobody cares. Who are you suited for? Where's the fit? And I think NVG is also client facing. Like, how I say to advisors, look, before we do this consultation, I want you to look in your office at an empty chair and pretend that there is a client listening to this. And you wouldn't be embarrassed. You'd be so proud, and they'd be proud of you that you're working on yourself and on your business. I think NVG is actually client facing. Like, Jackie, if you're my client and I'm your advisor and I'm saying, hey, Jackie, I just want to remove the mystery because people ask us if we'll make ourselves available to speak to a friend or a family member. And absolutely we will. It's a value added service we provide. They don't need to become a client. But if they want to become a client, that's a separate conversation. It's got to be a good fit because, we're not all things, all people. So, and then you just write NVG, right? Like vertically on the agenda, and then you populate it needs, values, goals, and you just explain that that's where the fit is. I think it validates for the client, hey, I'm with the right person. But I think it removes the mystery for that client in terms of who they should be introducing to the advisor.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a great exercise for teams to do, especially as you have these younger generations of financial professionals you're adding to the team who will work long term with these clients, making sure that you are on the same page with who you want to work with, because not everyone in that family tree is going to be a good fit. And I cannot emphasize this enough for financial professionals. Someone has to be a good fit for you as much as you're a good fit for them. I know you preach that all the time, and the family tree is no exception. That's why being proactive and resource-based, just like you said, Duncan, we're not committing to taking anyone on as a client. That gives you the look under the hood to see if these people are someone you want to work with. Like we had a team in Houston, I'll never forget. They did a family phone call and we debriefed afterwards. And on the call, the son-in-law of one of their bigger clients, he was basically a manifestation of every reason that financial professionals don't want to work with a millennial. He was asking, what are your fees? Here's what I did in my portfolio. What were your returns? No, financial planning is not a priority for us. And so after this, like, it was so uncomfortable that the client emailed the team in Texas to apologize for the son-in-law. So on our debrief, you talk about needs, values, goals. Well, for the team in Texas, financial planning is a value that their clients have. That's non-negotiable. So to hear that that's not a value or that's not valuable to the son-in-law, okay, that's a big red flag. Not to mention, it sounds like his need is not a lot of what they do. He wants to do it on his own. That's his preference. And everyone gets to have their preference. So what the team in Houston decided is, okay, if wealth is transferred, we're not going to keep them as clients. And that's okay. That's not a risk. That's asset attrition by design. It's only a risk if you don't plan for it.
Hey, Jackie, so just to pounce on that for a second, because you're right. I mean, having a fit process does often reveal an unintended consequence that it's not a good fit. And of course, that's can be uncomfortable. I had a client the other day who said, I basically have to tell my client that their baby's ugly. He was just kidding, but he was saying, like, I don't want their son as a client. He's just not there. He's not enlightened. And I said, you have to take the high road and make yourself available, position it properly with your client, but give that kid, for lack of a better term, the benefit of the doubt, because they've been put into a trance based on the velocity of noise, especially that issue regarding fees and trivializing the value of a financial advisor, because that kid only thinks you manage money. They don't have the proportion around the fact that you manage a client experience and you have a process to manage, every piece of the puzzle with your process. So just play the long game, be respectful. And then, of course, there's the conversation about bringing on a protege who can help work with people who are not necessarily a good fit. But yeah, it's very interesting about the diplomacy, but sticking to the person's protocol and not deviating. But I wanted to ask you this because you mentioned digital first, like the millennials, or there's a group of people that they've grown up with iPads and smartphones. That's what they know, and their access to information and content is just surreal. The key is finding the sweet spot between the high tech and the high touch, and just helping the family understand that, look, the more technology creeps into our lives, the voice of reason, the human touch, all of this really matters. And AI, all the digital, it can't manage the way an individual team can. So I'd love your perspective on that.
I think that's such a great reminder. And one of the silver linings that we see, especially post-pandemic, investors don't care so much about where you are, they care about who you are. And having a strong virtual digital presence, that allows them to feel connected to you no matter where they are. So having content that's distributed via email, newsletters, on LinkedIn, via video. I know we're such big advocates for video, but then also having those touches that are virtual, not necessarily digital. Remembering that they just got a promotion at work, or there's a new baby in the family, or they're going on a honeymoon to Italy. There are all these things that you can use that you don't have to be next to them to deliver an amazing experience, but it shows them how well you know them. And one thing that I do want to highlight is with the educational content, that is a great way to help these younger generations who don't know what they don't know and help them poke holes in what they think they know. So you're not telling them they're wrong. Nobody wants to be told what to do, but you're helping them come to these conclusions with your content, with your resources. Because being able to ask a professional, yes, we're going to leverage technology, we're going to leverage AI, it's going to revolutionize our business. But being able to pick up the phone, email someone, know that you know who's on the other end of that line or who you're sitting across from for a special occasion, nothing replaces that. Well, nothing
That's
replaces
great
that
stuff.
for the right clients, right? Everyone has a different preference.
Okay, well, but that is a big distinction because I said I said to an advisor not long ago who's actually sort of complaining about a client, and I said, well, you engineered that behavior because you're very reactive. And I said, I'd like you to be in touch but out of reach. And what I meant by that was, with the 80% of the clients who generate 20% of the business, be in touch with a one-to-many scalable service model, but you have to be out of reach. You cannot react. Somebody else in your team can react to the 80%. You make yourself available, stay in the lane where you react to the 20%, and of course, create a service model for them. So just a little distinction there. But listen, I've gotten as much out of our relationship from you as you might have gotten from us. So there's just so much here, especially in this, like you are so well positioned in this space. So here's what I want to ask you. Top 3 resources somebody can get from their first trust wholesaler that you and your team have curated.
Gosh, only 3. One of the great things about, just like at Pareto Systems, we have so many resources for financial professionals. I'll highlight 3 from today's call. One is the family phone call. It's a very comprehensive process. We have a video, we have scripts for it, there's a timeline, there's an intro script for the call itself. So family phone call resources, ask your wholesaler. The second one, that art of discovery. Having better qualitative discovery questions, really important in getting to know who those people are. The third is collecting the data. So one of the pieces we have is a client personal profile. So a profile that could easily be replicated within a CRM where you can collect different data points, pets' names, loved ones, hobbies and interests, favorite music, favorite food, anniversaries, are they a veteran, what they're looking forward to this year. So I would say those are 3 that really align with the conversation we've had today. But if anybody wants to learn more about the advisor consulting group, how we work with Pareto, for anyone listening, you got to get the Blue Square Method, Duncan and Chris's new book. If you don't have it, I actually have it up on my shelf right there. So definitely an essential for financial professionals who are here today and thinking about where they need to go going forward. So yeah, those are my big 3.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And you're probably not going to be able to see this, but look at the notes I took from this call.
Wow.
And I tried to order them in terms of priority. So I managed to get a progression of 5 steps. So I don't know if we can create maybe some content around that, but I'm going to try. This is so exceptional, and you're just so well positioned for what's happening in our space. So thank you very much, everybody. Follow Jackie Wilke on LinkedIn, absolutely non-optional, and contact your first trust wholesaler if you want to get access to those 3 resources and many more. And Jackie, thank you very much, and we're definitely going to have you back, of course.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Great to talk as always.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you for listening to Always On with Duncan MacPherson, where our objective is to enable professionals to always be working on their business and on themselves. Want to learn more about Duncan and his team? Visit ParetoSystems.com. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and/or guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Pareto Systems. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast is powered by Proudmouth, the Influence Accelerators. If you're like me and want to spend more time educating people and less time selling, Proudmouth helps turn Main Street experts like you into trusted mainstream authorities. They will help amplify your influence over a growing audience of magnetically attracted fans. Visit proudmouth.com to learn more.